Never lose your sense of wonder. That's a really important lesson in life. And this is my little universe. And it really feels like you're in a mini universe. And wondering is a big factor in my little universe, which really feels like a self-contained universe with 9 worlds for you to explore. And your little guy crashes on an unsettled moon, and there's no supplies and no way to reach back home. The game, I don't think, really explains this, but I guess the description blurb does elsewhere. So you have to make do with what resource gathering you have and establishing a settlement of sorts for one, which kind of doesn't make sense. I mean, when you start encountering random NPCs that were locked away, it's like, well, how are these guys surviving? I guess we'll never get answers for these questions that are kind of important. What are they living off of? But it's a game. I'm gonna leave it be and move on. So it really feels like Zelda meets Minecraft resource farming. You know, you're just traveling, you're exploring, it's super easy to play, you learn a few buttons to navigate the menu prompts, which really feels like a mobile game because it was, and then they ported it over. So it's, at first I thought it was like a really basic game. I thought, hey, this is going to be like a super easy 5-minute, gameplay, maybe 30 minutes gameplay, and then I'll be like, I understand this game. I understand it completely. It's a basic game, and then once you start playing, like you feel like the levels would be small and generic, and once you start grinding for those resources, you realize the dungeons just keep expanding and expanding, and it's like, oh my gosh, what have I started playing? It's one of those games. So I finished the entire first world in one sitting in 1 or 2 hours, and I was just blown away. I thought that was the entire game. I didn't realize there were other worlds. I'm like, oh wow, like it's an indie game, who knows? Some indie games are super short. Yeah, well, this game has another 8 worlds. After you've explored the first world, collected who knows how many resources, hundreds, thousands of resources of different possible minerals and blocks. So you can play with 3 other players. I can see it being more, challenging if you explored it solo as I did. If you play with others, I feel like, it's not the same experience. Like you don't feel as isolated. I don't know. That was the vibe I was feeling. And the game is gorgeous with the simplistic graphics and nice cartoon shading. It feels like, what if Nickelodeon put their mascot into a game and just let that mascot go collect random stuff? Lots just from the terrain, whatever. The game is super simple with intuitive buttons that allow you to switch between what you need to mine and how much to allow you to switch between the sword, sturdy, and pickaxe, sturdy axe. And there's super basic crafting involved. It's really not crafting, not in the same way that LGO does stuff or any other game really does crafting. But the game tells you what you need to mine, and then how much to open up the next island. So in a sense, it's kind of like some of the LGO games where they build the blocks, but more you just throw the stuff and then towards mini island, and it just generates itself. So it's kind of similar, but not at the same time. So yeah, so each small area of land will open up new areas and more areas that need additional resources for you to grind for. It sounds really basic, and once you start playing it, you see how this can be addictive. And just the feeling of one more hex, I really want to unlock a bit more, see a bit more of this world. And then I'm finished for now. That's like the general vibe you have, and then you keep on playing regardless. So there are mills and merchants there to refine your resources, convert them into coins or new resources types. So you'll always be collecting resources in small areas and then eventually converting them, and then that builds to that overall like scope of the world, the universe, little universe. So you're leveling up your weapon, and it's essential to survive in groups because you will be attacked by multiple enemies eventually, and if you don't level up your weapon, you know, you could potentially die, which there isn't really any like major loss. You just get regenerated, but it's just inconvenient. And then there's mini bosses that sort of crop up from time to time, but from what I saw in the first and second world, they're pretty rare. And you can fish to temporary buffs, but I didn't bother. Like when you level up, your character gets these buffs. I think you lose them if you do die, so there is a consequence if you do die, but it's not, I mean, it's 15% or 10% speed or mining ability or extra strength, defense. Like it's not a huge buff, but it's a nice buff. So the cons for this game, a lot of the gun mix and menus gameplay screen mobile port, as I mentioned, but you honestly won't care once you're hooked on into this gameplay loop that this game has, and man, it's an addictive gameplay loop. I was skeptical at first, and then I was like, you know what? This game is like insanely addictive, and you don't find a game this addictive very often. But it's just so simple, and that's what really brings you into the game. So fortunately, there's not a lot of backtracking. You can always go back to past areas, old worlds, and unlock them later. Great. So even without backtracking, the game starts to feel like a chore when you you realize you are nowhere near finishing the level, and the game expects you to convert resources and accumulate large sums of resources in isolated areas to progress. Darn. From world to world, it is the same gameplay loop, regardless of the new graphics to look at, and they really do change a lot, even within the same world. The different areas, they look nice. I mean, it's a pretty game, and it's got a certain style of its own. And you, so you get new materials to farm and collect. Okay, so sure, you could leave your character standing in front of the resources, and apparently some people do that, like they do something else, I don't know, write their report, chat with friends or something. But the game, and whack away mindlessly, but the game is aware of this tactic, and I had to check my phone for something, for a text or something, and then suddenly I was getting attacked, and they'll send enemies to attack you, and I almost died, which obviously would lose my buffs. So the mills are also incredibly slow. Like I set them up, I had to get like 200 or 300 of an item, resource I mean, and man, they're so slow that I was just waiting around like, this is kind of boring. It really drags down the gameplay. And even though it does it automatically, it's very slow, there's no way of speeding it up. And there's parts of the first world where the entire gaming exploration experience is slowed down by this as you wait for the mills to finish converting your resources so you can continue exploring. So, you know, it drags the game down a bit. A lot of the entertainment and my little universe's core appeal comes from the constant drive of collecting resources and just the instant satisfaction of seeing small land masses suddenly appear, just things poof into existence, enemies poof into existence, you find an island, hey cool, this looks like a shipwreck, like a pirate's island or something. And just seeing new enemies, new decorations, and the explosions from enemies, the particle effects, like these are all like little gimmicks that mobile games and this sort of game has to keep you entranced. And need to unlock everything to see what is hiding behind a locked area, what the next world looks like, to discover the unknown. It's the heart of my little universe experience. And the game goes for $19.49 regular price. You can find it on sale for $2 online. I was surprised. I think I got it in a bundle. I don't know. I feel like $5 to $10 maximum, because the gameplay loop is super addictive. It gets highly repetitive at the same time, very quickly. Even if it is addictive, it's a very simple, straightforward experience. You can play with friends, but you know, the exploring on your own is pretty fun too. I would say it's a solid 8.5 out of 10. It's a unique experience. It's addictive. It's fun, but it does get kind of old pretty fast. And there's 9 worlds of it. And after the first world, I was like pretty invested, and I was like, ugh, I've exhausted being an explorer in unknown land. Too much for me. So I would say the universe is by your side. Keep on gaming, universe. See you later. Bye.